We want to graph one complete period of y equals 4 cosine of x over 2 minus 3 pi over 2. Right, so this is just a variation of the cosine graph. Okay, remember we call this the base graph. No transformations, no shifting, nothing going on here, right? So the cosine graph, we know, looks a little something like this. Okay, it's not the sine graph, right? Sine starts here at 0, 0, right? This starts at 1. Okay, so this would be one complete period of the sine graph. Goes from -1 to 1 is the amplitude. This is going to be 2 pi right here. Right, now, of course, this looks a little bit weird, right? But we can extend this graph in both directions to get our wave that we're used to, right? But one complete period would be from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, and we always start here, right, for the cosine. So then we want to look at this and determine, okay, what are the transformations that are happening here, right? So these are based on the y equals a times the cosine of bx minus c. Okay? So we want to determine first what are the a, b, and c values here, and then use those to determine the amplitude, period, and the phase shift. Okay, so here a is equal to 4, right, which is a number in front of the trig function. Right, b is the coefficient of x. In this case, it's just going to be 1/2. And c is this last number here, which is -3 pi, positive, right? It should be positive 3 pi over 2. Okay. Remember that because we say that negative is built in, right? So minus whatever this number is, so the number c is just 3 pi over 2. Right, we know that the amplitude is just equal to a. In this case, that's 4. So that one's pretty straightforward, right? Instead of going from -1 to 1, it just goes from -4 to 4. Okay. The period is 2 pi divided by b. Right? In this case, we have 2 pi divided by 1/2. So we never divide by fractions. We always multiply by the reciprocal. So we get 2 pi times 2 over 1, which is 4 pi. That's going to be the period of this function. Lastly, the phase shift is c over b. So we get 3 pi over 2 divided by 1/2. I'll just write it this way, divided by 1/2, right? C over b. But once again, we never divide by fractions. We always multiply by the reciprocal. So 3 pi over 2 times 2 over 1, which gives us 3 pi. And right, that's going to be the phase shift. That's going to be to the right because it's positive. All right, so how does this change the shape of the graph? Okay. Well, let's take a look. We always do the phase shift first. We start at 3 pi. We don't start at 0, right? Okay. We don't start here. We start at 3 pi. I'm just going to eyeball this. Okay. So we're going to start at 3 pi. The next thing to do is just to draw one complete period, right? So we're going to draw one complete period. We start here. We go down. We come up. And we end here again, right? This is one complete period. Okay. It looks a little bit weird, right? The cosine graph looks a little bit weird. Okay, but we know that we're going to start at 3 pi, we're going to end here. Okay, now once again, we can draw this graph extending again in both directions. Okay, we don't really need to, right? So this is going to be one complete period from here to here. So the last thing we want to do is figure out these 3 points in the middle. Okay. Well, of course, we go from -4 to 4, right? Because that's the amplitude. So what is this point here going to be? Right? This point is not 4 pi. You got to be careful with that, right? The period is 4 pi. What does that mean? It means that the distance, right? The length from here to here, right? The length from here to here, that's equal to 4 pi. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, we start at 3 pi. So 3 pi plus 4 pi, right? That's going to equal 7 pi. Okay, so 3 pi plus 4 pi is equal to 7 pi. That's just going to be this point right here, right? This point here is 7 pi. Okay. Now, how do we find the middle point, right? Remember, this is just the average. So 3 pi plus 7 pi is 10 pi. But then, because we're finding the average, we've got to divide that by 2 or multiply by 1/2. In this case, dividing by 2 is going to be a lot easier. So that's 5 pi, right? This point here is the point 5 pi. Now we can find the other 2 points, right? Same thing. We'll add 3 pi plus 5 pi. which is 8 pi divided by 2 to get 4 pi here. And then 5 pi plus 7 pi is 12 pi. Divide that by 2 to get 6 pi. Right? So this is going to be one complete period from here to here. Of course, we could have used another period, right? That'll just be a different part of the graph. But it's best to always start out with the phase shift, right? So we started out going to the right 3 pi. We just draw one complete period, and then we figure out what these values are.